Once I touched them, it was over. There was no way I could stop.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. This week's episode is a very tragic one, and I must go ahead and give you a, disclaimer. It's a bit lengthy. Now listen here. Y'all been saying y'all want these episodes. Y'all want 2, 3 episodes a week, baby. That's not gonna happen, okay? Because y'all gotta remember your girl got a job and school and kids and all of that outside of these episodes. Like it takes a lot, like a whole lot to research an episode for the week. So if I were to be doing 2, 3, 4 episodes, I would never leave my laptop. Y'all, I promise y'all, I'm gonna try to see, what I can work out. Y'all know for my subscribers, I got something special coming in May. But for right now, I'm gonna try to give you some lengthy episodes so that way that can kind of, suffice. Now, I hope y'all got some snacks and something to drink. Y'all know your girl got her glass of wine and a bowl of popcorn on my Olivia Pope, cause whew, baby, this one took me down a rabbit hole. Okay, but yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the number of victims is still very much a big question to this day. Like in doing the research, I've seen different numbers that range from 9 to 11 to so much as 20 victims, okay? But this week's case involves Tashanda Bethea, Sharon Nance, Caroline Love, Audrey Spain, Valencia Jumper, Michelle Stinson, Vanessa Mack, Betty Jean Baucom, Brandy Henderson, and Deborah Slaughter. Y'all, they are all victims. And our infamous murderer, Henry Louis Wallace. Henry Louis Wallace was born November 4th, 1965, in Barnwell, South Carolina. I don't even know where the hell Barnwell is, but it just sounds like one of them sundown towns. It just sounds like somebody just gonna jump out and be like, "Get him, Jim Bob." Like, I just, I'm sorry. Okay. But anyway, he was born to Lottie Mae Wallace. Lord, y'all. Ooh. See, I'm trying to make it to heaven, but Lottie Mae, like, it just, I just want to be like, did you sit on the back of the bus? Like, I'm sorry. Anyway, okay. So his father was pretty much non existent in his life, like from jump. And that's because good old Lottie Mae was not his wife, okay? She was that good old coleslaw, you know what I'm saying? That side piece. Now, he was married to another woman, and Lottie Mae was just his, good time girl. So when Lottie came to him and she was like, "Babe, guess what? We gonna have a baby." Bro was like, "Oh, word? Okay, well, I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna be back." And my nigga was out. Like he left Lottie pregnant and by herself. Okay. Well, she wasn't technically by herself. She did have an older daughter by the name of Yvonne. So now Lottie got two kids that she got to think about. She's working long hours as a textile worker at a factory. And when she does get, time to spend with her kids, she is always on Henry's ass, like always. And so was Yvonne. She would chastise and criticize him about every little thing that he did, and, she was just like a really hard disciplinarian. And I get it as parents, yeah, you got to be tough on your kids. I'm always on my kids' asses. Like, I got one kid that stay in trouble. Like, every time I blink, I'm having to go up to the school. But I feel like there's a difference between being a disciplinarian and just being an asshole towards your kid. You know what I'm saying? And Lottie Mae just wasn't a disciplinarian. Like, she just did extra shit that was unnecessary. Like, when her and his sister Yvonne would dress him up like a little girl and then parade him around the neighborhood to embarrass him. Like, what is that going to prove? You know what I'm saying? What is that doing other than fucking up your kid's mentality? Like, it's not to say that it, excuses what he's done, but shit like that is what sets people off. You know what I'm saying? So, despite all of this, Lottie's working all of these long hours, and at the same time she's chastising and everything, and just criticizing him about every little thing. He's a kid, he's gonna make mistakes. But, on top of that, they had no indoor plumbing or electricity in their house. Whew. But despite all of that, Henry still had somewhat of a normal, I guess you could say, childhood. He attended Barnwell High School in South Carolina, where he was elected to student council, and he was also a cheerleader. Baby, I could just imagine what his mama had to say about that, especially since, cheerleading wasn't really popular back then. And he was the only male cheerleader on the team. So it's not like he could really, share his thoughts with anybody else. But he didn't really let it phase him any, because he was popular and everybody liked him. He had a high school sweetheart, Moretta Brabham, that he was just head over heels for. And he graduated in 1983 and he became a DJ for the local radio station there. Now, he was known as Night Rider because of his smooth, sexy voice, but homie got caught stealing records and was fired a short time later. Now, after this, Henry kind of had a little bit of trouble figuring out what he wanted to do with his life education wise. And he went to several different local colleges before he just said, okay, I'm going to just go to the US Navy. That's going to be the best bet. So he joined the Navy in 1985. And then shortly after that, him and his boo Moretta got married. Now, while he was in the Navy, is kind of where I guess you could say his criminal life just really took off. And he started using drugs. Like, no one really knows what brought on the drug usage. I don't know if it had anything to do with the way that his mother was on his ass, or maybe it was the pressures of, having to provide for him and his wife. I don't know. But he was using drugs real bad. And I'm not talking about no weed or nothing like that. I'm talking about heavy drugs. Like, homie was into crack cocaine. And naturally, when you start using drugs, you got to support your habit. And when you blowing your whole paycheck on drugs, you got to do what you got to do to get that money. So at this point, he's stationed in Seattle, Washington, and while he's living there, he starts doing all these breaking and enterings like all over the area. Now, it was a bunch of kind of like petty theft, but in January of 1988, he actually got arrested for breaking into a hardware store that was near the naval base. And he pled guilty to second-degree burglary, and he was sentenced to 2 years of supervised probation. Whoa, nigga, you lucky. All you got was probation. And the fucked up thing is, his probation officer, Patrick Seaberg, was like, that nigga didn't even really show up for majority of his mandatory meetings. Like, how you do that? You are trying to avoid jail time and you don't even show up for the mandatory meetings. Make that make sense. But, I guess they were just like, all right, we ain't gonna worry about it. So he just went on to live his life. But breaking and entering wasn't the only thing that he did. Now, there's not much on the first victim, but Henry actually committed his first rape in 1987 in Seattle, Washington, where he was stationed. Now, this girl actually survived, but I promise y'all, it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack just to get that information. Like, there's no record of her name, nothing on the internet. And, a part of me is like, okay, I can understand because she's a victim. She's his only living victim. Well, I shouldn't say his only because there was another person, which I'll get into later on in the episode. But, she survived unlike anybody else. And, you kind of want to move on with your life. So I totally 100% get that. But like I said, she was the only survivor, but that was the last time that Henry let that happen. It was during his time that he was in the Navy that he started catching feelings for this girl, Tashanda. Now, y'all remember, Henry is very much married. Oh, I married my high school sweetheart and I'm so in love and all of this. But yet he out here lusting after a teenager. And I'm so serious when I say a teenager. Y'all, this nigga was R. Kelly before R. Kelly was R. Kelly. Okay. But, he was having all of these fantasies about her and he was just like, I gotta have her. So it wasn't until 1990 that Henry became this monster. Or rather, I should say that the monster just kind of released himself. Tashanda Shan Bethea was born February 13th, 1972, in Barnwell, South Carolina. And Henry was very familiar with her because both his mother, Lottie Mae, and Tashanda's mom worked at the same factory. Like, they were really good friends. And, Henry would sometimes give her rides, and he was just like always trying to get at her. And, she was trying to let him down easy. He's like, oh, baby, you got to give me a chance. I'm trying to see what's up with you. And she's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. But y'all know niggas can't handle rejection. Like, these be the same niggas to be in the club. Oh, what's up, baby? How you doing? Let me buy you a drink. And then you tell them no, and they be like, oh, fuck you, girl. You ain't all that, no way. Really, nigga, you was definitely just trying to like buy the whole bar for me, but okay. So, that's pretty much kind of what the vibe was with Tashanda. She wasn't really feeling Henry like that, but he just kept pursuing her. And he's like, baby, I can take care of you. Baby, you beautiful. And she's like, yeah, I appreciate it, but it ain't going down. But, Henry kept at it. And one day in March of 1990, he decided, all right, I'm tired of just fantasizing about it. I'm going to get her. So he offers her a ride like he's done, several times before, and he ends up driving her to the woods. Now, he told her flat out, like, yo, I'm really feeling you. And she's like, you got a whole wife, and this is too much. He was like, but man, I gotta have you. Like, I really want to fuck. And she's like, boy, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, no. So he ends up pulling out a gun while they're in the car, and he tells her, oh no, bitch, you gonna do what I want you to do or else. And now, Tashanda, she feels trapped. She's like, oh my God, this man got a gun on me. What am I gonna do? And, she has no choice. So she lets him have his way with her. And the whole time he's raping her, she's just laying there. And he's like, yo, you're not gonna tell nobody, right? And at first, Tashanda is like, nigga, hell yeah, I'ma tell. Like, you are taking advantage of me right now. You're raping me. Like, what the fuck you think? Like, I'ma tell. But I think she kind of started to realize the severity of things. And so she switched up her answer. She was like, no, I'm not going to say nothing. I swear. I'm not going to tell nobody. But by this time, Henry is already like scared. He's spazzing out. He can't leave anything to chance. He's already had a situation where he's raped a girl and, the cops were hot on his ass, but they just couldn't link him. So he's like, damn, I can't have another living witness. Not to mention one that knows his mama. Like, what would her mama say if she went and told her, yeah, Henry raped me? What was his mama gonna say? Like, she was already on his ass enough as it was, for every other little thing. So he could just imagine what she was gonna say about that. So he knew that he had to get rid of her. So he started like choking her, and he actually tried twice because the first time Tashanda went unconscious, but then like she came to in the middle of it. So when he saw that, that wasn't working, he was like, fuck it, gotta improvise. So he slashes her wrist and her throat with a box cutter, and then he takes her to the pond and he just throws her in. Now, the pond is about 6 miles outside of Barnwell. It wasn't until a couple of weeks later, on April 1st, 1990, that two fishermen discovered her body. Here's the thing: when the autopsy was performed, they found out that Tashanda was still alive when he threw her in. Once again, the cops had Henry as a suspect. They actually questioned him in connection to it, and when they brought him in, oh, Henry acted like a straight asshole. In fact, Barnwell County Sheriff Joey Zorn actually recalled like the day that he, questioned him. And he was like, yeah, Henry was just sitting there cocky as hell, like, listen, y'all ain't got shit on me, so if you ain't gonna arrest me, then I'm about this bitch. And, at the time, there wasn't really enough evidence to link him directly to her murder. So they had to let him go. And, his mom and his sister are comforting Tashanda's family. And he right there, right along with him, with his good old wife, comforting the family. And Tashanda's murder, it went unsolved. And her family laid her to rest, not knowing who was responsible, not knowing that the killer was literally amongst them. And Henry just went on with his life. Now, it just so happened that he was also questioned in connection with the attempted rape of a 16-year-old girl in Barnwell, but he was never charged for that either. So, despite all of this criminal activity, despite him getting arrested for breaking and entering, despite being questioned for, for these murders or for the murder and these rapes, the U.S. Navy said, you know what? This might be a little bit too much, but we're going to go ahead and give you an honorable discharge. I'm sorry, say what? You going to do what? Like, how the hell you do that? Like, this man literally was doing breaking and entering near the base. He was questioned for not one, not two, but three different rapes, and proven to have pled guilty to breaking and entering. But y'all just said, all right, we're going to give him an honorable discharge. Like, had y'all done y'all's due diligence, and I know that the military has a whole completely different standard when it comes to, the criminal justice system and everything, but y'all could have fixed this and, given him a dishonorable discharge, or tried him amongst the military courts. Shit could have went a whole lot different, is all I'm saying. So he ends up getting a job at Sandoz Chemical Company, where he worked as a chemical operator. But of course, he was fired not too long after he got started. Like, this is the most getting fired ass. Anyway, but with all of this going on, his wife Moretta was just like, listen, babe, you know what? This is just getting to be a bit too much for me. I can't take this. You're not the same person that you were when we met. Like, I'm out. And so the two of them divorced, and Henry moved back in with his mother, Lottie Mae, and his sister, Yvonne, and they all relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, it's 1990, and while he's in Charlotte, he's trying to find himself once again. And he's, a bit lost, and so he starts working at different restaurants like Golden Corral and a few other spots, but he keeps getting fired. What the fuck are you doing that you just keep getting fired from restaurants? Like, how out of control are you? What? Make that make sense to me, y'all. So he ends up getting a job as a manager at a local Taco Bell, but the whole time, he's still on drugs. Now, it was during this time that he started dating 26-year-old Sadie McKnight. Sadie McKnight was born April 10th, 1967, to Linda Pedler and Charles Slade in Jamaica, Queens, New York. She was nicknamed Peppermint, and she worked at this restaurant called Bojangles. And baby, shout out to Bojangles because they got the best chicken supremes. Okay, baby, let me give me a good old 4-piece supreme with some seasoned fries and a large sweet tea. Oh, I am good to go. Sorry, had to unbig my back for a minute. Wait, can we still say that? Because Lord, everybody's so sensitive now. But anyway, so Sadie shared an apartment with her friend and coworker Caroline Love. Now, Caroline Love was born July 17th, 1971, and she studied nursing at Central Piedmont Community College. And she worked at Bojangles with Sadie for like 2.5 years and was really, really close with her sister Katie. On June 15th, 1992, Henry is in one of his moods and, he's fiending for some drugs. So he goes over to his girlfriend's house, and mind you, she has no clue. This Negro got a key, okay? He took the key from her and got that shit duplicated. She has no clue. So he goes over to her crib knowing that, she shares it with Caroline, and he makes himself comfortable. Neither of the girls are home at the time, but Caroline actually does end up coming home. And, he gets up and he goes over to her and he puts her like in a hug and kisses her on the cheek. And she's like, bro, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, how you coming to me and you know that your girl is my homegirl? Like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? And remember, he's this big ladies' man, okay? Clearly, I'm not seeing it, but okay, go off. So Henry isn't really like concerned about her response. And, Carolyn is like, all right, something's up with this dude. So she just tells him, look, I'm gonna chalk it up as you just out here being stupid. Just, don't do it again. And you ain't got to worry about me telling Sadie. But baby, that did not faze Henry at all. He snatched her up and puts her in this chokehold, and he later refers to it as like the Boston chokehold. He just kept choking her until she was unconscious, and then he drug her to the bedroom. And she starts to actually regain consciousness in the middle of this, and like she's kicking and fighting, and he just snatches her clothes off of her and he rapes her the whole time he's still choking her. And, he's sitting there like, damn, this chick's strong as fuck. Like, he's trying to overpower her, but she ain't going down easy. Like, she's kicking and screaming. And so he grabs the closest thing that he can get his hands on, and it just so happens to be a curling iron. He wraps the curling iron, the cord of it anyway, around her neck, and he just starts strangling her. Now, after he finishes raping her, he's just looking at her lifeless body and he's like, fuck, what the hell am I going to do? So he's looking around and he's like, all right, shit, I got to get her out of here before Sadie comes home. So he starts to come up with a plan, and he runs into the kitchen and gets a large orange garbage bag, like one of those industrial size bags, which on a side note, why the hell do they just got these randomly in their apartment? Like, y'all just randomly have body size bags in y'all's crib? Mm, okay. Anyway, he wraps her inside of one of the sheets that she was laying on, and then he stuffs her inside of the bag and he drags her out to his car. And then he goes back into the apartment and he gets a roll of quarters that she had on the table, locks the door back behind him like nothing ever happened, jumps into his car, drives to the city limits of Charlotte, and just dumps her body in a ditch. But a few days later, he comes back to see, like, okay, has anybody discovered her body? Because he hasn't heard anything. And when he gets back, he sees like she's real, like, for lack of better words, leathery looking, like in an interview that he did, he actually compared her to ET. Like he was like, yeah, she looked like worn out leather. And he's happy because she hasn't been found, so he gives it a couple more days and he comes back again, and this time she's nothing but bones. Like the elements have gotten to her. It's literally just bones. Meanwhile, Sadie has, come back home, and mind you, she don't know that her man got a key to her apartment. So she don't think anything's wrong, and she doesn't see Caroline at first, but her manager had called Caroline's sister Katie that same night that Caroline was supposed to be there, and he's like, "Hey, Caroline's supposed to be at work right now. She ain't here. Do you know where she's at? And Katie starts thinking, but she can't get an answer. And, she's panicked. And so she lets him know, hey, I'll find out what's going on and I'll let you know. So she calls Caroline, but no answer. She goes to the apartment to see if somebody, is home, maybe if something's wrong. She gets there and she's knocking for several minutes, but nobody answers. So she's thinking, all right, I'm going to leave her a note and let her know that I'm looking for her. But in the back of her mind, she knows something's up. So she hits up Sadie and she's like, hey, babes, have you heard from my sister? And Sadie's like, nah, it's kind of strange. And, she's like, dang, now that you think about it, she ain't show up for work either. And the manager was asking about her. And Katie's like, I know because the manager reached out to me too. So, I'm trying to see what's going on. So Sadie comes up with the idea, hey, you know what? Let's just contact the cops. And that's exactly what they do. Sadie and Caroline's sister Katie, they go to the cops and Henry goes along with them. They all go up to the police station, and Detective Anthony Rice was sent out to the apartment to, kind of investigate and see what was going on, make sure everything was okay. So Sadie actually opens the door for him, and as soon as he enters the apartment, oh, he knows something is off. Like stuff is kind of thrown around, and it looks like there's been like a little bit of a struggle. There's chairs moved around. One is actually tossed on the floor. So he goes and he looks in Caroline's room and he sees that there's no sheets on her bed. So he's like, yeah, that's a little bit strange. And he continues to look around the apartment. He sees not only are there no sheets on her bed, but the roll of quarters is also missing. And, Caroline was supposed to be doing laundry, but her laundry hamper was still there, which kind of let him further know, all right, yeah, something is definitely up. I bet Henry was probably kind of thinking to himself, like, fuck, I probably should have grabbed them clothes too to make it look like at least she was doing laundry. But anyway, so after this, Caroline Love is officially declared a missing person. And, Sadie, she couldn't bear the thought of just being in that apartment, knowing what happened. So she actually ended up moving in with Henry. Now, they're living the couple life. And in December of 1992, she surprises Henry and she's like, hey, baby, guess what? You're going to be a daddy. Now, I don't know if he was happy or what actually happened, if she actually had the baby, because that is just up in the air. Like, there is nothing on that. But, they continued to have a relationship. Now, it's now 1993, and it's been about 7 months since Henry killed Caroline. He's still working at the Taco Bell as a manager, and, he's also still dealing with this drug habit. And I'm talking about bad. Like, he needs to get a fix all the time. And that's when he struck again with his next victim. February 17th, 1993, after Henry gets off work, he decides to go after his next victim, a young college student by the name of Shauna Hawk. Shauna Denise Hawk was born December 2nd, 1972, and was the second child and only daughter of Dee Sumter and Walter Hawk II. She attended Central Piedmont College. She was studying to be a paralegal, which was like a very popular profession. Shout out to the Black paralegals, by the way. She was nicknamed the Purple Princess because her favorite color was purple. And I actually saw one of her older pictures. And of course, she was wearing purple. Every picture that I saw of her, she was in purple. Like, that was too cute to me. She would go to school in the morning and then she worked at Taco Bell at night to pay her college tuition. And, she was a typical college student. She had a boyfriend by the name of Daryl Kirkpatrick, whom she met on the set of Can You Help My Child, where he was an actor. So the two of them had just started dating and they were, kind of hot and heavy. So it's February 17th, 1993, and Shauna's coming home and she's taking off her coat when her doorbell rings. So she goes to answer it and she sees that it's her manager from the restaurant, Henry. And she's like, okay, what's he doing here? So she ends up letting him in and the two of them start having a conversation and, they're talking for about an hour. And he's telling her, stuff's just real bad with me and Sadie. We've been fighting like crazy. She getting on my motherfucking nerve, always coming at me with dumb shit. Like he's trying to gauge her to see if he can just, get some sympathy out of her. Like, bro, when you start talking like that, I'ma know that you fucked up some kind of way. Cause ain't no chick just gonna come at you for no reason. I'm gonna be like, okay, well, what did you do? But Shauna, she's chill about it. And she's kind of teasing him a little bit about everything. And, she's like, bro, I know you did something. Like, you better go apologize to that girl. And so they keep talking. And then he decides that he's going to get up and leave. At least that's what Shauna thinks. He's using his same old routine and, he gets up and like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and go. And, he starts walking towards the door and he gives her a hug and, he just completely blindsides her. He's looking at her like, you just so beautiful. And Shauna, she's a bit taken back by this. Like, this is her coworker. This is like, somebody that she knows, and he's never come at her like this before. And then all of a sudden, he tells her, well, what's up? You trying to get this dick? Like, what's good? Nigga, what? Not you out here trying to get sympathy pussy because you was just talking about your girl and you beefing, and now you over here trying to fuck the next chick. Really? Really? So, according to Henry, Shauna agreed to have sex with him, but of course, there's discrepancies there because why would she just agree to have sex with you when she got a whole ass boyfriend and she knows you got a girlfriend? The same girlfriend that you supposedly came over to talk about? And also, why would she be crying the entire time? Yeah, homegirl was crying. He takes her to her bedroom and, he's telling her, take your clothes off. And she does, but the whole time, like, she's bawling, she's crying, and she's like, I don't want to do this. She's scared as hell. But, she does what she got to do because she's trying to stay alive. And she knows that he's off, like, he's about to do something stupid. Now, he has sex with her, or, rather, he rapes her. And the entire time, she's just in tears, y'all. Like, does that sound like somebody that agreed to fuck you? Like, hell no. So once he gets done, he tells her, get up, you coming with me. And he takes her to the bathroom. And there he just grabs her and just starts choking her. The same way that he did Caroline, he does this like Boston chokehold that he's always talking about. And he's choking her literally, watching her lose consciousness. Now, while she's laying out, he runs a bath and then he puts her body inside of the bathtub full of water, submerged. He goes upstairs and he starts going through her purse and he takes $50 out of it, drops her purse by the coat that she had left at the door, and then he leaves. So her mom, Miss Sumter, she came home a little bit later and, she's thinking Shauna's there. Her coat is laying by the chair and her purse is right next to it. And it's cold as hell outside. So she got to be in the house. Like it's Charlotte in February. So she's like, all right, I know she got to be around here somewhere because her coat is here. Maybe, maybe her boyfriend came over. Maybe she's with Daryl. And so she calls her boyfriend Daryl and asks, hey, have you seen Shauna? Is she with you? And he's like, no, I ain't seen her. And so she's like, all right, I'm gonna call her job. So she calls the Taco Bell where Shauna works, and they're like, no, we haven't seen her. She's not here. And so Daryl's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna just come over there and help you look for her. Like I said, it's late, it's February, it's cold. So they're trying to find Shauna. So Daryl gets there and they're going through the house and everything, trying to figure out where the hell she could have gone. But when they go upstairs and they go towards the bathroom, Daryl notices that the carpet is like really wet, like sopping wet. So he goes towards it and he sees that the shower curtain is kind of messed up. Now, his curiosity gets the better of him. And so he pulls the shower curtain to the side and just lets out like this blood curdling scream. There in the tub is Shauna laying naked, her head completely submerged, with her eyes staring up at the ceiling, dead. Now, sadly, his reign of terror didn't end there because 4 months later, in June of 1993, Henry decided to go after another employee at the restaurant, Audrey Spain. Audrey Ann Spain was born August 18th, 1968, in North Carolina to Broughton Spain and May Helen Graham Johnson. Ooh, child. Now, at the time of the attack, she was 24 years old, and Henry's drug use was kind of like really getting out of control. He was smoking crack all the time, and y'all know that shit ain't cheap. I mean, I personally don't know because ain't no way in hell you gonna see me doing something like that. But the point that's being made is that drugs aren't cheap, okay? So he had to have money, and you can only make so much working at Taco Bell, even as a manager. So Audrey had actually just come back from vacation, and Henry had put it in his head that, she probably had access to the safe at the Taco Bell. So he goes over to her house and he charms his way inside. And the two of them are talking and they decide to, smoke a little weed and, just chill out. So they're in there getting high and he's having fun and trying to, figure out how to get her guard down and, get her to relax and trust him. And of course, weed will help you relax. Again, listen, okay, I don't smoke it, but I'm a damn sure I love me some good old edibles. Okay, it helped me relax. I'm just saying, I don't do it all the time, but when I do, baby, I am chill. Okay. So they're smoking and chopping it up, and Audrey just has no clue about what's about to happen. So at this point, Henry's like getting kind of agitated and anxious because he really needs this money. So he just like grabs her and he throws her to the ground and he's screaming, "Yo, what the fuck is the combination to the safe?" And she's looking at him like, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't know nothing about no safe." But he's not believing anything that she's saying. He's firing back. "That's bullshit. What the fuck is the combination? How you get into the safe?" And, she's still like, "Bro, I swear I don't know anything. Like, let me go." And so he's holding her down and he can see that clearly she really don't know anything about this safe. So he's like, "All right, how much money you got?" But again, she's a college student. She just got back from vacation. She work at Taco Bell. Okay? Do y'all get where I'm going with this? And she's telling him, "Yo, I don't have anything. Like, I'm broke." And I'm just thinking to myself, like, did you expect her to just have a whole bunch of money? She's working in a fast food industry. Yeah, she had just come back from vacation and everything. But I don't know about y'all, but when I come back from vacation, yeah, I got money, and I'm paying my bills and everything, but I don't spend a lot of money, on vacation. So why would you think that she's gonna come back, with a whole bunch of money from vacation? Like, I could see if she went to the casino or some shit like that, but no, this is a 24-year-old. Like, no, she ain't got that kind of money. And so, Henry's hearing this, and at this point, this is where he starts to think, and I start to think,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
and I mean fucked up big time, okay? Nigga, if you plan to rob her, why not find out for sure if she even has anything that you can rob? Like, if you know she only makes so much, or that, she would have the combination to the safe, verify it first, dumbass. Because essentially, you're wasting both of y'all's time. Like, you went through all of this and you ain't get no money. So at this point, he ain't got a choice. He's not getting any money or finding out the combination to the safe. He's got absolutely nothing. That's what your punk ass get. So he chokes her and he strangles her and she's unconscious. And he does the same thing that he did with Caroline and with Shauna. He drags her into her bedroom and he rapes her. But during the rape, she wakes up and she's screaming and begging him, "Please, please don't hurt me. I'll do whatever you say. Just please don't do this." And he just fucking ignores her and keeps raping her. And when he's done, he chokes her back unconscious. And then he takes her nightgown and a t-shirt and like makes this little makeshift rope and he strangles her to death. Now, he puts her in the shower and he turns on the water, washing off his DNA, and then he just lays her naked body on the bed. On his way out, he steals one of her credit cards. Now, She was supposed to report to work. On June 23rd, 1993, Audrey was supposed to work the evening shift at 6:30 p.m. at the Taco Bell on Wendover Road. Now remember, Henry works there too, but there's another manager there by the name of Mark Lewis, or excuse me, Mark Lawrence. So when Audrey doesn't show up, he starts talking and thinking, and he's like, all right, this ain't like Audrey to not show up for work now. And he calls her, but of course, he doesn't get an answer. So he decides to go by her house and knock. And when he gets there, he sees her car is in the parking lot. So he calls her again and he leaves her a voicemail. And he's like, hey, you know, you missed your shift, right? Like, you need to call me and tell me what's going on because we're short staffed. Like, you need to be here. And the next day, June 24th, Audrey doesn't show up again. So Mark gets back in his car and he drives past and he sees that Audrey's missed another shift. This time he calls her sister, who was listed on her emergency contact, and he tells her what's going on. And you know what? Honestly, I appreciate the level of concern because, like, clearly this man knew his employees. And, you know, I feel like if we don't look out for our own, like, seriously, who will? And it's good that, you know, he knew what type of person Audrey was. Like, for her to not show up, he knew that shit was off. He knew that something wasn't right about that. So the fact that he acted so quickly just speaks volumes. But Audrey's sister never called him back. So he was like, all right, I'm gonna wait around and just see, you know, what happens, see where she's at. So he calls the cops and they go to do a welfare check on June 25th, but nobody answers the door. So the maintenance guy ended up going and checking it out, and he goes in through this sliding door in her apartment. He walks in and sees her naked body laying on the bed, and he calls the cops to tell him what he found. So the next time that Mark comes by the apartment, there's cops everywhere, and he's like, what the hell is going on? And they tell him what happened. And on June 26th, 1993, Dr. Sullivan conducts an autopsy on Audrey's body, and they see that there was a ligature mark made from a t-shirt and a bra around her neck, with the end of the t-shirt that was stuffed into her mouth. Um, he also discovered hemorrhages, skin on the face, in the voice box, and in the muscles in the front of her neck, as well as like a minor blunt trauma injury, which included a small facial abrasion and a small contusion over the right hip. So her official cause of death, of course, was strangulation. So now you've got three girls that have all been murdered by strangulation, and only two of them have been found. Now, Henry knew that the cops didn't have much to really connect him or anything. Hell, they didn't have anything to even start a profile because they wouldn't link the cases together. Like, they barely acknowledged them. Why? Because they're young black girls. And trust me, we're going to get into that later. But of course, you know, the only thing that they had was, which was definitely more than enough to actually link these cases together, because they were both black women who were killed in their homes. Both of them worked at Taco Bell for some time. They were both strangled, and they had both been robbed of money that they had. Like, not to mention that the cops even said there was no forced entry at either home. So whoever did it, the victims knew it. That sounds like enough to build a profile, but no, not Charlotte. They were like, nah, these ain't connected, because they didn't give a fuck. Okay, these were two young black girls. They didn't give a shit. Now, okay, I'm just be honest with y'all. Listen, you got two employees at the same restaurant that have died. Ain't, if I am a Taco Bell employee, ain't no way in the entire fuck am I gonna be working there anymore. Hell, y'all better kiss my ass. Don't ask me to come in. The answer will be no. Mm-mm. Fuck this job. I'm out. Anyway, okay, so not even 6 weeks later, on August 9th, 1993, Henry strikes again. And this time he decides to go visit a friend of his sister's by the name of Valencia Jumper. Valencia Michelle Jumper was born May  10th, 1972, in Columbia, South Carolina. She was 21 years old at the time, and she was a senior at Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte. Hey, Johnson C. Smith. Y'all know it ain't nothing but Johnson C. Smith is cool, but we know it's all about Aggie pride. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, Valencia was a political science major and she worked at Food Lion on Central Avenue as well as Hex in South Park Mall. Now, if you don't remember, Hex was like this department store that was around back in the day. It was, I guess you could say it was like similar to Sears and all of that. So, Sis was holding down two jobs and going to school. And, she was good friends with Henry's sister, Yvonne. So Henry goes over to her crib and he talks himself into her house. And of course, she's all trusting and, he's being all suave and debonair and all of that. And he goes under the same exact ruse that he needed to talk to somebody about a fight that he had with his girlfriend. So they're in the house and they're talking. And after a while, Valencia's like, maybe you should call Sadie and tell her where you at so that, she don't worry. And he's like, yeah, you know what? That's a good idea. So she turns around to go get the phone, and then he does what he normally does. He jumps up, starts choking her from the back. He puts her into the chokehold and drags her to her room and once again rapes her. Every time I have to say this word, it just fucking irks me. Like, I can't, you fucking coward, you bitch made nigga. Like, I hate saying that word. As a victim and a survivor, I hate saying that fucking word. I fucking hate it with a passion. But I really want y'all to, get the full. I really want you all to get, the full detail of this episode. So my apologies. I get a little passionate about it. So he chokes her unconscious and, takes advantage of her. And while she's unconscious, he takes a towel and strangles the life out of her as well. But this time, he did some crazy shit that was a little twisted and different. Like, clearly, he's had the same MO. So, on top of strangling the girl with the towel, he decides to get a bottle of rum that he saw sitting out and he pours it all over her. Then he goes and grabs a can of pork and beans, which is so fucking random. Like, that is the weirdest shit ever. And he puts it on the stove and cuts the stove on high. And he goes around and he starts taking out the batteries in her smoke detector. And then he says, all right, he gets a match. He lights her body on fire. And on his way out, he grabs some jewelry and he dips. Almost as soon as Henry leaves, Valencia's boyfriend, Zachary Douglas, he's coming up the walkway. So, he's getting closer and he starts to smell something burning. Now, he didn't think much of it until he gets close to the door and he sees black smoke coming up from, beneath it. And he, pushes the door open, but it's so much smoke that he can't get inside. And all he can do is just run to one of the neighbors' doors and beg for help. And he's pleading, call the cops, call the cops. My girlfriend's apartment's on fire. Please call the cops. And the cops get out there and the firefighters come and they put the fire out. And when they're going around the apartment to see what started the fire, they see Valencia's naked body severely burned on her bed. Now, here's the thing. The medical examiner said that she died of severe thermal burns, but in all actuality, she had been strangled to death. So Henry took the jewelry that he had taken from Valencia and he took it to a pawn shop where he got some money for it to support his little drug habit. At this point, this nigga is like Pookie, okay? Like, he's like, they calling me, they calling me. Like, this nigga can't stop getting high. So a few days later, they have Valencia's funeral, and Henry and his sister Yvonne, they go and they're giving their family, their condolences and prayers. And he's like actually hugging her mom and stuff, like, oh, I'm so sorry that this happened, and I'm praying for you and your family, and that they get the person that did this. Like, this nigga was literally in the midst of the investigation the entire time. What kind of crazy shit? You sick, twisted fuck. I, I wish I could have found some more on Valencia's family because I'm like, bro, the minute that I found out you did that shit after you came and had the audacity to hug me and tell me that you praying for me, oh, I'm gonna be on your ass like a second layer of skin, baby. Y'all gonna have to pull me off that ass. I'm gonna unalive you 5 times and then I'm gonna bring you back to life just so that I can unalive you again, okay? But anyway, sorry, went off on a tangent. I'm trying to do better. My bad. So a month goes by, and on September 14th, 1993, once again, Henry starts to get that familiar itch. This time, he goes to see a friend of his that is from Taco Bell. Now, she's not an employee there, but she's been there lots of time. She's a college student by the name of Michelle Stinson. Michelle Denise Crowder Stinson was born August 29th, 1973, in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, to James Crowder and Joan Stinson. Now, Michelle was a little different. She was a single mother. She had her kids fairly young, like really young. So by 20 years old, she was the mother of a 3-year old and a 1-year old. Whew, Jesus be offense. Now, she would come to the Taco Bell a lot and, have conversations with Henry. And, sometimes he would volunteer to give her a ride home. So there was one particular evening that he offered to give her a ride and she accepts. So he drops her off at the apartment and he invites himself in and, they're talking and everything. And after a while, he starts that whole, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. I'm gonna head out. And when he gets up, he embraces her in a hug and he tries to lay his, little charm on her. And he's whispering his little sweet nothings in her ear. Baby, you so beautiful. Oh my God, you're so gorgeous. And, he's telling her that he want to sleep with her. You know what I'm trying to do to you, girl. But Michelle is like, nigga, what the hell are you doing? Now, what makes it worse is that her sons were home. Her 3-year-old and her 1-year-old were home. Like they were in the bed asleep. Now, this is where the story gets confusing because it's kind of conflicting. One story says that he took her home, but another one says that she was already there. And I'm going to go with the latter of the two because with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, it's not like you can just leave them alone. Like, I'm not about to be out here partying or going to Taco Bell and leaving my 1-year-old and 3-year-old at home. So I'm thinking that she was already home. But, at some point he decided that he wanted to have sex with her and she wasn't with it. At this point, she's trying to figure out, what she can say to stop him. She's like, well, he's all on her. He's like, listen, I'm trying to fuck. What's good? And she's telling him, I can't, I'm a little sick. And he's side-eyeing her and, he's like, what you mean you sick? And she tells him, yeah, I'm not feeling too good. I've been taking medicine because of my illness. So Henry's like, well, let me see the medicine that you taking since you claiming you sick. But Michelle can't find any. And, at this point, he's like, this chick lying to me. So he knocks her down and he rapes her right there on the kitchen floor and she's doing everything she can to fight, but she don't want to upset him too much, not to mention she got her kids in the room asleep the entire time. So he starts to choke her out and all of a sudden he just switches it up. He gets up and he runs to the bathroom to go get a towel. Now, the whole time, Michelle is fighting and gasping for air, and she's just coughing and sputtering and everything. And Henry's panicking. He's like, fuck. He knows that he don't have time. So he just goes and grabs a knife in the kitchen and stabs her 4 times in the back. Now, that same towel that he was going to use to choke her, he's now using to wipe off his evidence from everything that he's touched. The glass that he drank out of, the phone that he ripped out the wall, and even the floor. Now, during all of this commotion, Michelle's 3-year-old son wakes up and he comes wandering into the kitchen and, he's saying, Mommy, Mommy. And Henry sees him and tells him, to go back to bed. And Henry is shook because this little boy done came into the kitchen in the middle, y'all, of him killing his mama. And thank God he decided not to touch those babies, because I don't even know if I would be able to do this episode knowing that, like, it's some fucked up people out here. And I'm just like, I'm so glad that those kids survived and that, he didn't touch them. But, he got to get up out of there ASAP. So he dips out and he takes the knife and the towel that he used to, clean himself up and clean off the evidence. And he tosses it over a fence near the back of her apartment while he's running. Now, the two little boys, they're in the apartment and they come in and they see mommy laid out on the floor. Now, it just so happens that one of her friends and neighbor, James Mays, had come over. He was knocking, and one of the boys answered the door, and they're telling him, Mommy's sleeping on the floor in the kitchen. So when James goes to look, he finds Michelle laying like in this pool of her own blood, and he's freaking out and he calls the cops. And the kids are okay, of course, but they don't fully understand what's going on with their mom. They're 1 and 3. They don't know. The police get there and they see the same MO. She's been raped, but this time she's been stabbed. So they're like, okay, well, this can't be connected because she was stabbed. And it wasn't like the other cases. Bullshit. Her heart was ruptured with one of the stabbings. So at this point, the community is just in an uproar. You got a bunch of angry black people in the community like, yo, somebody going around here raping and killing women, killing black women. Y'all got to do something to find out about this. And rightfully so, because it's only been like 15 months and you've had 5 fucking deaths and disappearances all within a 5-mile radius of East Charlotte. How the fuck are y'all not connecting this? So the police department, they're like, all right, we got to get in front of this. These folks are starting to act up. So they decide to hold an emergency press conference. And like a few hours before they did that, they decided, you know what? It's too much shit coming at us. We're going to switch it up. We're going to change up the narrative. They appoint Sergeant Gary McFadden as the lead investigator. I'm laughing, even though clearly this is not a funny situation, but McFadden's answers to some shit had me just freaking weak. But he, Gary had no prior involvement with any of the cases that pertain to these killings. But the department, they're like, okay, well, this is the black man, so he should be the face of it all, which was the dumbest shit. If you're going to appoint someone, you're supposed to do it because they're qualified. Not to say that he wasn't, but go off of that. Don't do it to save face. Now, I will say that they did increase the police patrols in East Charlotte, so it kind of slowed Henry down a little bit when it came to the killings. The police presence, that increased. And on top of that, Henry ended up having a baby girl, but it wasn't by Sadie. Oh, yeah, he had knocked up another chick, but Sadie stayed with him. And then on February 4th, 1994, he was arrested for shoplifting. Now, he got arrested and was booked and everything and was given a court date. And then they released him, but he never showed up for his court date. Like, this nigga got 9 lives, y'all. Like, literally, he has 9 lives. He has absolutely no fear of the police. And if you gonna be, acting like this and you the cops, shit, I ain't gonna fear your ass either. Hell, they arrested him for shoplifting and then let him go. Now, they said that they issued a warrant for his arrest, but they never actually went to like apprehend him. Like he was in their sight the entire time and they did nothing. Absolutely nothing. So throughout all of this, McFadden has me freaking cracking up because he's catching hell. He knows that the cops used him because he was black, and the community knew it too. He told the press flat out, they treated me like a scapegoat. It was a total conflict. Oh, I believe it. And of course, with Henry kind of going stale for a little while, everybody's thinking, all right, maybe the killer is done. Maybe the heavy police presence on the streets actually worked and he's moved on. But no, because on February 20th, 1994, he had a new victim in his line of sight. But You're going to have to wait until tomorrow to hear about the new victim because I told y'all this is a long ass episode. I didn't say it was going to be all in one part. So you're going to have to wait until tomorrow, but I promise you part 2 will be up tomorrow, okay? Listen, I'm sorry, y'all. This episode is really long, and after talking about all of this rape and murder and everything, I gotta reset my mind for tonight because shit. Not to mention that, like I told y'all, have your snacks and your wine or whatever, because I've definitely had 2 glasses while doing this episode. But I promise y'all, I will be back tomorrow. Less than 24 hours. You're getting another episode, okay? And y'all know I don't do that. But that's how much I love y'all. I'm making sure that my infamous people is taken care of. You getting part 2 in the same week. Like literally the next night. Fucking awesome. Okay? I'm just saying. But that is all for this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. Be sure to follow the show on the following Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. And that's a number 1, by the way, not spelled out. And you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can send a friend request to the Infamous Ones or join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group. I don't know why I have to keep saying this, but if you don't answer the questions, you ain't getting in. And don't be talking shit either if you don't. I mean, Breezy said it best. How you hating from outside of the club? And you can't even get in. Aha! But, once you do get in, you can leave a review there as well. Or, chop it up with the infamous crew and myself. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. So please leave a review, people. It only takes a couple of seconds, okay? And speaking of reviews, I'm only going to read one tonight because of the fact that, like I said, we are going to have another episode tomorrow. So this review comes from Lernia Ivory, and she says, Imani Moss's episode has me all in my feelings. I love the way the story was told. The passion and the hardcore mom emotions had me screaming at the phone. As an abuse survivor and a step parent, I would tell anybody that will listen, don't get involved with someone that cannot love your children like you do. I recognize that had to be a hard episode for you to do, but thank you for sharing it. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Pooh. And yes, when you go hard for your kids, it is a little difficult, but I push through it. Like I said, I love what I do. Okay. Remember my exclusive Infamous One starting in May. I will be dropping more than one episode a week for y'all. There's going to be many episodes, and it's going to focus on something that I think you'll really enjoy. So stay tuned. But you have to subscribe in order to get those mini episodes. And again, it's not going to start until May, okay? In the meantime, in between time, support your favorite true crime podcast. For all my subscribers and those that donate, I'm going to do like a little meet and greet where you can ask me questions via Zoom on March 23rd. To have access to that, you can subscribe via the link at the bottom of the streaming service that you're listening to. You click that link and you can subscribe. I want to say the lowest subscription is like $4.99. You can click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to and hit listener support to donate. You can also leave any amount from as low as $1. And the Infamous Ones now has an official Cash App, so y'all can hit that Cash App too at $infamous ONE pod. Now, if you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, or if you want to leave a review there, or for ad space, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUSONEPOD@gmail.com. Outside of that, please share, share, share. Sharing is caring, people. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Not next week, but tomorrow night with part 2. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.